The morning sun filtered through the windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine, the Princess of Wales, gently woke her daughter. It was a special day, one that the entire family had been preparing for over the summer. Princess Charlotte, at just 4 years old, was about to take her first steps into the world of formal education at Thomas's Battersea, the same school her older brother George attended. Charlotte had been awake long before her mother entered the room. The little princess had been too excited to sleep properly, tossing and turning all night thinking about what the day would bring. She had laid out her new school uniform the night before, checking it multiple times to make sure everything was perfect. The navy blue cardigan, the red gingham dress, and the little black shoes were arranged neatly on the chair beside her bed. Catherine smiled as she saw her daughter already sitting up, her eyes bright with anticipation. There was something beautiful about this moment, watching her only daughter prepare to embark on this new journey. The Princess of Wales had experienced this before with George, but somehow this felt different. Charlotte had her own unique personality, a spark that set her apart even at such a young age. The household staff had been preparing for this day for weeks. The kitchen had Charlotte's favorite breakfast ready, though everyone knew she would probably be too excited to eat much. Prince William had cleared his schedule to ensure he could be present for this milestone. It wasn't every day that their little princess started school, and both parents wanted to be there to support her. Charlotte bounced out of bed and ran to hug her mother. Her enthusiasm was infectious, filling the room with joy. Catherine helped her daughter get dressed, carefully buttoning the cardigan and making sure the gingham dress sat just right. Charlotte stood still for only a moment before twirling around to see how the uniform looked from every angle. She had been waiting for this day ever since George had started school, watching him get ready each morning and wishing she could join him. Prince George appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his own school uniform. He had been at Thomas's Battersea for 2 years now and had grown comfortable with the routine. Seeing his little sister so excited brought a smile to his face. George had been protective of Charlotte since the day she was born, and now he would get to see her at school every day. He promised her that morning that he would show her around and make sure she knew where everything was. William joined the family in Charlotte's room, his face beaming with pride. He knelt down to Charlotte's level and asked her if she was ready for her big day. The little princess nodded enthusiastically, her ponytail bouncing with the movement. She told her father that she couldn't wait to learn new things and make new friends. There was no nervousness in her voice, only pure excitement and joy. The family made their way downstairs for breakfast. Catherine had made sure to keep the morning routine as normal as possible, despite the significance of the day. Charlotte managed to eat a few bites of her breakfast while chattering away about all the things she hoped to do at school. She wanted to learn to read big books like George, she wanted to paint pictures, and she was especially excited about the idea of making friends her own age. Prince Louis, still too young for school, watched his siblings with curious eyes. He didn't quite understand why everyone was making such a fuss, but he could feel the excitement in the air. Catherine held the youngest prince on her lap, knowing that in a few short years, they would be doing this all over again with him. As the time approached to leave for school, the royal protection officers began preparing the vehicles. Thomas's Battersea was located across the River Thames in Battersea, southwest London. The school had been carefully chosen by William and Catherine for its excellent reputation and its approach to education. The school valued kindness, courtesy, confidence, humility, and learning to be givers, not takers. These were principles that aligned perfectly with what the royal couple wanted for their children. Charlotte checked her small backpack one more time. Inside was a water bottle, a snack, and a family photograph that Catherine had placed there to help her feel connected to home during the day. The little princess had chosen the photo herself, one from their summer holiday that showed the whole family laughing together. Catherine had explained that whenever Charlotte missed home, she could look at the picture and remember that they would all be waiting for her when school ended. The family gathered in the entrance hall of Kensington Palace. Palace staff members who had watched Charlotte grow up from a baby lined up to wish her well on her first day. The little princess walked down the line, shaking hands, and thanking each person with a natural grace that seemed to come so easily to her. Even at 4 years old, Charlotte understood the importance of showing gratitude and kindness to those around her. William helped Charlotte into her coat, while Catherine made sure George had everything he needed for his day. The household photographer was present to capture these precious moments, though the family had requested privacy for the actual school drop-off. They wanted Charlotte to have as normal an experience as possible, without the pressure of hundreds of cameras and reporters watching her every move. As they prepared to leave, Charlotte took one last look around her home. The palace had been her whole world up until now, a safe and loving environment where she was simply Charlotte, not Princess Charlotte. Now she was about to step out into a bigger world, one where she would need to navigate friendships, learning, and social situations that extended beyond her family circle. Catherine noticed a brief moment of hesitation in her daughter's eyes. She knelt down beside Charlotte and gently reminded her of all the wonderful things waiting for her at school. Catherine spoke about the friends she would make, the stories she would hear, the art she would create, and the games she would play. She reminded Charlotte that George would be there if she needed him, and that both Mummy and Daddy would be thinking of her all day and couldn't wait to hear all about her adventures when they picked her up. The reassurance worked perfectly. Charlotte's bright smile returned, even bigger than before. She took her mother's hand firmly, squared her little shoulders, and announced that she was ready. Prince William opened the door, and the family stepped out into the September morning. The cars were waiting, engines quietly running, ready to transport them to this important milestone. George climbed into the car first, followed by Charlotte, who slid in beside her brother. Catherine sat next to her daughter, while William took the front passenger seat. As the convoy pulled away from Kensington Palace, Charlotte pressed her face against the window, watching the familiar sights of London pass by. The city was already awake and bustling with activity, people going about their daily lives, completely unaware that a little princess was on her way to her very first day of school. During the drive, George pointed out landmarks and told Charlotte stories about his school. He explained about the playground, the library, the art room, and the dining hall. Charlotte listened intently to every word, storing away the information for when she would need it. She asked her brother dozens of questions, and George patiently answered each one, enjoying his role as the experienced older sibling. Catherine watched the interaction between her two oldest children with a full heart. This was what she and William had always wanted for their children, a close bond that would support them throughout their lives. Despite being born into extraordinary circumstances, William and Catherine were determined to give their children as normal a childhood as possible, and moments like these proved they were succeeding. As they crossed the River Thames, Charlotte could see the morning sun sparkling on the water. The city looked beautiful from this view, and she wondered if she would be able to see the river from her classroom. George told her that some of the windows at school looked out over interesting views, and that maybe she would be lucky enough to have a desk by a window. The cars slowed as they approached Thomas's Battersea. The school building came into view, an impressive structure that had been educating children for many years. Charlotte's eyes widened as she took in the sight of her new school. It looked even bigger than she had imagined, but George quickly reminded her that it was a friendly place full of nice people. The vehicle came to a gentle stop at the entrance of Thomas's Battersea. Charlotte could see other families arriving with their children, some looking excited and others appearing a bit nervous about their first day. Parents were holding hands with their little ones, carrying backpacks and lunchboxes, sharing words of encouragement. It was a scene that played out at schools across the country every September, and in this moment, the Cambridge family was simply another family experiencing this universal milestone. Helen Haslam, the head of the lower school, was waiting to greet them. She had met Charlotte during a previous visit to the school, and the little princess remembered her kind smile and gentle manner. Mrs. Haslam had extensive experience helping young children settle into school life, and she had a special understanding of how to make each child feel welcomed and valued. She approached the car as the family emerged, offering a warm greeting to everyone. Charlotte stepped out of the car, holding tightly to her mother's hand. For just a moment, the magnitude of what was happening seemed to hit her. This was really happening. She was really starting school. Catherine felt the small hand grip hers a little tighter and gave it a reassuring squeeze. William walked on Charlotte's other side, his presence providing additional comfort and support. The family had requested that the media be kept at a distance for Charlotte's first day. Unlike George's first day, where photographers had been allowed to capture the moment, William and Catherine wanted Charlotte to have a more private experience. They felt it was important for her to focus on the experience itself rather than being aware of cameras watching her every move. A single photograph would be released later, but for now, Charlotte could simply be a little girl starting school. Mrs. Haslam led the family toward the entrance, chatting easily with Charlotte about the fun day ahead. She mentioned that there would be time for playing, learning new songs, hearing stories, and making art. Charlotte's eyes lit up at the mention of art. She loved to draw and paint at home, often spending hours creating colorful pictures that would then be displayed proudly around Kensington Palace. As they walked through the school corridors, Charlotte noticed the walls decorated with children's artwork and colorful displays. Everything seemed bright and welcoming. The school had been designed to feel warm and inviting, a place where young minds could flourish and grow. George had settled in beautifully here, and his parents were confident that Charlotte would do the same. They passed several classrooms where children were already settling in for the day. Charlotte peeked through the windows, watching other boys and girls hanging up their coats and greeting their teachers. Some children were building with blocks, others were looking at books, and a few were chatting with their friends about their summer holidays. It all looked so interesting and exciting. George pointed out his classroom as they walked past, and Charlotte made a mental note of where to find him if she needed her big brother. He reminded her that he would be around during break times and that they might even see each other in the playground. The school had organized their schedules so that while the siblings were in different year groups, there would be opportunities for them to cross paths during the day. Finally, they arrived at Charlotte's classroom. The door was open, and inside, several other children were already exploring the space. There were tables set up with various activities, shelves filled with books and toys, and a cozy reading corner with soft cushions. The classroom teacher, an experienced educator who had been briefed about Charlotte's arrival, came over to welcome them. The teacher introduced herself and bent down to Charlotte's level to shake her hand properly. She told Charlotte that she was so happy to have her in the class and that they were going to have a wonderful year together. Charlotte, remembering her manners, responded politely and even managed a small smile. The teacher's warm demeanor helped ease any lingering anxiety. Catherine and William spent a few minutes in the classroom, helping Charlotte find a place to hang her coat and put her backpack. They showed her where the bathrooms were located and where she would sit for various activities. The teacher explained the daily routine in simple terms that Charlotte could understand, talking about circle time, snack time, outdoor play, and story time. Charlotte noticed another little girl standing alone near the bookshelves, looking a bit uncertain. With a confidence that surprised her parents, Charlotte walked over and introduced herself. She asked the girl if she wanted to look at the books together. The other child's face brightened immediately, and soon the two girls were sitting on the floor, paging through a picture book about animals. Catherine and William exchanged a glance, their hearts swelling with pride at their daughter's natural kindness and social grace. This was exactly what they had hoped for. Despite being a princess, Charlotte was showing that she understood the importance of reaching out to others and making people feel included. These were lessons that Catherine and William had worked hard to instill in their children, teaching them that their position came with responsibilities, including the responsibility to be kind and considerate to everyone they met. The classroom began to fill with more children and their parents. The teachers skillfully managed the organized chaos of the first morning, greeting each family warmly and helping children find activities to engage with. Charlotte remained absorbed in conversation with her new friend the two of them now looking at books about dinosaurs and giggling at the pictures of the giant creatures. William checked his watch and looked at Catherine. They both knew it was almost time to leave. Schools generally encourage parents to keep goodbyes brief on the first day to help children settle more quickly. Lingering too long could sometimes make the separation harder. They had discussed this with Charlotte beforehand, explaining that Mummy and Daddy would need to leave once she was comfortable, but that they would be back to collect her at the end of the school day. Catherine approached Charlotte and gently let her know it was time for parents to go. Charlotte looked up from her book, and for a brief moment, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. But then she looked around the classroom at all the interesting things to explore, at her new friend sitting beside her, and at the teacher who was organizing a fun activity at one of the tables. She stood up, smoothed down her gingham dress, and gave both her parents a hug. William told Charlotte how proud they were of her, and reminded her to have a wonderful day. He said that George would be nearby if she needed anything, but he was confident she would have such a good time that she would barely think about home. Charlotte nodded, her natural confidence reasserting itself. She told her parents she would see them later and turned back to her friend, already planning which activity they should try next. Catherine felt the familiar tug of emotion that all parents experience when leaving their child at school for the first time. It was a mixture of pride, love, and a touch of sadness at how quickly her baby was growing up. William placed a supportive hand on his wife's back as they made their way toward the door. They paused at the threshold to look back one more time. Charlotte was now at a table with several other children, laughing at something the teacher had said. She was completely engaged in the moment, her earlier excitement having transformed into genuine joy at being part of this new environment. She didn't even glance toward the door where her parents stood. In that moment, Catherine and William knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Mrs. Haslam walked with the royal couple back toward the entrance. She assured them that Charlotte was clearly a confident and capable child who would thrive in the school environment. The head teacher had seen thousands of children start school over her career, and she could recognize the ones who would settle quickly. Charlotte had all the signs of a child who would embrace the experience wholeheartedly. As they walked back through the corridors, William asked Mrs. Haslam to call if there were any issues, though he suspected there wouldn't be. The school had his and Catherine's contact information, as well as numbers for the royal protection officers who would be discreetly positioned around the school throughout the day. The security had been carefully planned to ensure Charlotte's safety without being intrusive or making her feel different from the other children. Outside the school, the morning was progressing beautifully. The September weather was mild and pleasant, perfect for the children who would be spending time in the playground later. Catherine and William climbed back into their car, and as they pulled away from Thomas's Battersea, Catherine looked back at the building where her daughter was beginning this new chapter of her life. William reached over and took his wife's hand, understanding the emotion she was feeling without her needing to say a word. They had been through this before with George, but somehow each child's milestone felt unique and significant in its own way. Charlotte was their daughter, their only daughter, and watching her grow and become more independent was both wonderful and bittersweet. The drive back to Kensington Palace was quieter than the journey to school had been. Both parents were lost in their own thoughts, reflecting on the morning and thinking about their little girl. They discussed how well Charlotte had handled everything, how she had reached out to another child, and how confident she had seemed even in a new environment. These observations reinforced their belief that they were doing something right in raising their children. Back at the palace, Prince Louis was with his nanny, playing in the nursery. Catherine went to see him, needing the comfort of having at least one of her children nearby. Louis was delighted to have his mother's full attention and proudly showed her the tower he had built with his blocks. She gathered him in her arms, breathing in his baby's scent and feeling grateful for these fleeting moments of childhood that passed so quickly. Meanwhile, at Thomas's Battersea, Charlotte was discovering the joys of her first proper school day. The morning had been carefully structured to help the new students feel comfortable and engaged. After the parents left, the teacher gathered all the children in a circle on the carpet for what she called circle time. This was a chance for everyone to introduce themselves and share something about their summer holidays. Charlotte sat cross-legged on the carpet, her hands folded neatly in her lap, listening as each child took their turn to speak. Some children talked about beach vacations, others about visiting grandparents, and a few mentioned special trips to theme parks or zoos. When it was Charlotte's turn, she spoke clearly and confidently about spending time at the family's country home, playing with her brothers, and seeing her cousins. She didn't mention castles or palaces or royal duties. She simply talked about family, which was what mattered most to her. The other children listened politely, and Charlotte could see that some of them had similar experiences of playing with siblings and spending time outdoors. She felt a growing sense of connection with these other boys and girls. They might come from different backgrounds, but they were all 4 and 5 years old, excited about learning and making friends. In this classroom, those were the things that mattered most. After circle time, the teacher explained the first activity of the day. The children would be creating name tags to put on their desks. There were sheets of cardstock in various colors, along with markers, crayons, stickers, and glitter. The room buzzed with excitement as children chose their materials and got to work. Charlotte selected a pink card and carefully wrote her name in her best handwriting, using purple marker to make the letters stand out. She added some flower stickers around the edges and used a small amount of glitter to make it sparkle. The girl she had befriended earlier, whose name was Emma, sat beside Charlotte at the table. Emma was working on her own name tag, using green card and drawing butterflies around her name. The two girls chatted as they worked, discussing their favorite colors, their favorite animals, and what they hoped to learn at school. Charlotte discovered that Emma loved horses just as much as she did, and they made plans to play a horse game during outdoor time. The teacher moved around the room, admiring each child's work and offering help to those who needed it. When she reached Charlotte's table, she complimented both girls on their beautiful name tags. Charlotte beamed with pride, pleased that her work was appreciated. She was used to praise from her family, but somehow, receiving it from a teacher in this new setting felt different and special. As the morning progressed, the children engaged in various activities designed to help them become familiar with the classroom routines and expectations. They learned where to find supplies, how to clean up after themselves, and how the classroom jobs would work. Charlotte paid careful attention to everything, wanting to do her best and follow all the rules. George had told her that being organized and following directions were important parts of being a good student. Around mid-morning, it was time for a snack break. The teacher explained that they would be having this break every day and that children should bring a healthy snack from home. Today, however, the school had provided fruit and water for everyone. Charlotte sat with Emma and 2 other children at one of the tables, munching on apple slices and chatting happily. The conversation flowed easily among the children as they discussed their favorite fruits and shared funny stories. One little boy at their table mentioned that he had a dog at home, which sparked a lively discussion about pets. Charlotte contributed to the conversation, talking about the family dog, Lupo, who had sadly passed away the previous year, and how they had loved taking him for walks. The other children shared their own pet stories, and Charlotte listened with genuine interest. She was learning that everyone had interesting things to share, and she wanted to know about all of them. After snack time, the teacher announced that they would be going outside to the playground. This announcement was met with cheers and excitement from the children. Charlotte had been looking forward to seeing the playground that George had described. She followed the other children as they lined up at the door, waiting patiently for her turn. The teacher had established a rule about walking in the corridors, and Charlotte made sure to follow it carefully. The playground was even better than Charlotte had imagined. There were climbing frames, swings, slides, and a large grassy area for running and playing games. Several classes were outside at the same time, and Charlotte scanned the playground looking for George. She spotted him with a group of older boys kicking a football around. He caught her eye and waved, and Charlotte waved back enthusiastically. Just knowing her brother was nearby made her feel even more secure and happy. Emma grabbed Charlotte's hand and pulled her toward the swings. The two girls took turns pushing each other, laughing as they soared higher and higher. Other children from their class joined them, and soon there was a group playing together, taking turns on the equipment and making up games. Charlotte's natural leadership qualities began to emerge as she suggested they play a game where they pretended to be different animals, leaping and climbing around the playground. The teachers supervising the playground watched with approval as Charlotte integrated seamlessly with the other children. There was no sense of entitlement or expectation of special treatment. She waited her turn, shared the equipment, and made sure everyone was included in the games. These were the qualities that William and Catherine had worked so hard to nurture, and it was clear their efforts were paying off. During the outdoor play, Charlotte experienced her first minor setback of the day. While running across the grass, she tripped and fell, scraping her knee slightly. For a moment, tears welled up in her eyes, and she sat on the ground looking at the small graze. Emma rushed over to see if she was okay, along with one of the playground supervisors. The adult examined the knee, determined it was just a minor scrape, and offered to take Charlotte inside to clean it and put on a plaster. Charlotte hesitated. She didn't want to miss out on playtime, but her knee did sting a bit. George, who had seen the fall, jogged over to check on his sister. He knelt down beside her and asked if she was all right. Charlotte nodded, trying to be brave. George told her that he had fallen loads of times when he first started school, and that it was no big deal. His reassurance helped, and Charlotte decided she would go get the plaster but then come right back outside to play. The playground supervisor took Charlotte's hand and led her inside to the first aid room. As they walked, Charlotte explained what had happened, speaking clearly despite the slight wobble in her voice. The supervisor cleaned the scrape gently and applied a colorful plaster with pictures of stars on it. She told Charlotte that she had been very brave and that the plaster would help the scrape heal quickly. Charlotte looked down at her knee, rather pleased with the decorative plaster, and decided that it wasn't such a bad thing after all. By the time Charlotte returned to the playground, she had completely forgotten about her minor injury. She found Emma and the other children and jumped right back into their game of animal pretend. The rest of outdoor time passed in a blur of running, laughing, and playing. When the teachers called everyone to line up to go back inside, Charlotte was slightly out of breath but glowing with happiness. Back in the classroom, it was time for a story. The teacher had chosen a wonderful picture book about a little badger who goes on an adventure. All the children gathered on the carpet, and Charlotte found a spot between Emma and another classmate. She loved story time at home, and she was excited to experience it in this new setting. The teacher read with expression and enthusiasm, showing the pictures and asking questions throughout the story. Charlotte was completely absorbed in the tale. When the teacher asked what the children thought the badger should do next, Charlotte raised her hand eagerly and shared her idea. The teacher praised her thoughtful answer, and Charlotte felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Learning was turning out to be just as exciting as she had hoped it would be. After the story, the teacher introduced an art activity. The children would be painting pictures of their favorite summer memory. Large sheets of paper were distributed, along with palettes of watercolor paints and brushes. Charlotte thought carefully about what she wanted to paint. She decided to recreate a scene from her family's summer holiday, showing the beach with the sun shining and her brothers building sandcastles. As Charlotte painted, she became completely absorbed in her work. She carefully mixed colors to get just the right shade of blue for the sea and yellow for the sand. She added tiny figures to represent her family, painting each one with care. The teacher came by to observe her progress and was impressed by Charlotte's attention to detail and her creative approach to the task. Emma was painting a picture of her grandmother's garden, with flowers in every color imaginable. The two girls compared their work and complimented each other's artistic choices. Charlotte loved how everyone's paintings were different, each one reflecting the individual child's experiences and imagination. She was beginning to understand that school was a place where you could express yourself and be appreciated for your unique perspective. The morning had flown by with incredible speed. Before Charlotte knew it, the teacher was announcing that it would soon be lunchtime. The children needed to wash their hands and put away their art supplies. Charlotte carefully placed her painting on the drying rack, making sure it wouldn't get smudged. She washed her hands thoroughly, remembering what her mother had taught her about proper hygiene. Lunchtime at Thomas's Battersea was a communal affair. The dining hall was a large, bright space where children from different classes ate together. Charlotte carried her lunchbox to one of the tables and sat down with Emma and several other children from her class. She unpacked her lunch, which had been carefully prepared by the palace kitchen according to her preferences. There was a sandwich cut into triangles, some carrot sticks, a small box of berries, and a homemade biscuit. George appeared at her table, checking to see how her first half-day had been. Charlotte's face lit up as she told him all about her morning, the activities, the new friends, the playground, and even the scrape on her knee. George listened with the patience of an experienced older brother, nodding at all the right moments, and assuring her that the afternoon would be just as fun. After lunch, the children had another outdoor break before returning to the classroom for afternoon activities. Charlotte was starting to feel a bit tired from all the excitement and activity of the day, but she was determined not to let it show. She wanted to experience every moment of her first day at school fully. In the playground, she joined a group of children playing a chasing game, running around with boundless energy despite her growing fatigue. Emma suggested they explore a different part of the playground, an area with a small garden where the older children grew vegetables and flowers. Charlotte thought this was a wonderful idea. They walked over to see the raised beds filled with various plants. A teacher supervising that area explained to the curious group that the children had planted these vegetables in the spring, and now they were harvesting them. Charlotte was fascinated by the idea of growing your own food, and made a mental note to ask her parents if they could have a garden at home where she could plant things. The afternoon session began with a mathematics activity. The teacher explained that they would be learning about numbers and counting through a fun game. The children were given colorful counting bears and asked to sort them by color and count how many of each color they had. Charlotte loved the little bears and carefully arranged hers into groups, counting each one aloud. She found she was quite good at this and enjoyed the logical nature of the task. Emma was sitting next to her again, and the two girls worked together, helping each other count and checking their answers. The teacher encouraged this kind of collaboration, explaining that learning together and helping friends was an important part of being in school. Charlotte appreciated this approach. She had always enjoyed helping others and found that explaining things to Emma helped her understand the concepts even better. Next came a music lesson, which was one of Charlotte's favorite parts of the day. The music teacher arrived with a cart full of instruments including tambourines, maracas, triangles, and small drums. The children were allowed to choose an instrument, and Charlotte selected a tambourine decorated with colorful ribbons. The music teacher taught them a simple song with actions, and the children sang and played their instruments with enthusiasm. Charlotte discovered she had a good sense of rhythm and timing. She shook her tambourine in time with the music, her face lit up with joy. Music had always been part of her life at home, with her mother playing the piano and the family singing together, but making music with a whole class of children felt special and different. When the song ended, the teacher praised the class for their excellent first effort and promised they would learn many more songs throughout the year. Following the music lesson, it was time for another story. This time, the teacher chose an interactive story where the children could help decide what happened next. At various points in the tale, the teacher would stop and ask the class to vote on which direction the story should take. Charlotte found this incredibly exciting and raised her hand eagerly each time there was a choice to make. She loved that they were all creating the story together as a class. During the story, Charlotte noticed that one little boy sitting near her looked sad. He had been quiet most of the day, and now she could see tears forming in his eyes. Without hesitation, Charlotte reached over and gently touched his arm, asking in a whisper if he was okay. The boy sniffled and admitted that he missed his mummy. Charlotte understood that feeling. Even though she had been having a wonderful day, there had been moments when she thought about her parents and home. Charlotte told the boy that she had missed her mummy too at first, but that the day had been so full of fun things that she hadn't had much time to feel sad. She told him that their mummies would be coming to pick them up soon, and they would have so many exciting things to tell them about. The boy managed a small smile and thanked Charlotte. The teacher, who had noticed the exchange, gave Charlotte an approving nod. This act of kindness and empathy was exactly the kind of behavior the school wanted to encourage. As the afternoon progressed, the teacher introduced the children to the classroom library. She explained that throughout the year, they would be able to borrow books to take home and read with their families. Charlotte's eyes widened with excitement. She loved books and had a large collection at home, but the idea of choosing new books from the school library was thrilling. The teacher showed them how the library system worked and promised that starting next week, they would each be able to choose a book to borrow. The final activity of the day was free play time, where children could choose from various stations set up around the classroom. There was a building blocks area, a dress-up corner, a drawing table, a puzzle station, and a play kitchen. Charlotte headed straight for the building blocks with Emma and two other girls. They decided to build a castle together, working collaboratively to construct walls and towers. As they built, the girls chatted about their day and made plans for things they wanted to do tomorrow. Charlotte was already looking forward to coming back to school, which surprised her a little. She had expected to enjoy it, but she hadn't anticipated feeling quite this enthusiastic about returning. The combination of learning new things, making friends, and being part of a community was everything she had hoped for, and more. The teacher moved around the room during free play, observing how the children interacted and played together. She made notes about each child's interests and social skills, information that would help her tailor her teaching approach to meet each student's needs. When she observed Charlotte's group working on their castle, she was pleased to see the collaborative nature of their play and the way Charlotte naturally took on a leadership role while still ensuring everyone's ideas were included. As the end of the school day approached, the teacher gathered the children together one final time. She told them what a wonderful first day they had all had and how proud she was of each of them. She explained what they would be doing tomorrow and reminded them to bring their water bottles and snacks from home. The children helped tidy the classroom, putting away toys and supplies and gathering their belongings. Charlotte put on her coat and picked up her backpack. She checked to make sure she had everything, including the family photograph that had stayed safely in her bag all day. She hadn't needed to look at it even once, which made her feel quite grown up and independent. Emma came over to say goodbye, and the two girls hugged and promised to play together again tomorrow. The teacher led the class down the corridor toward the pickup area where parents would be waiting. Charlotte walked in line with her classmates, her heart full of the day's experiences. She had so much to tell her parents, she didn't know where she would start. The scrape on her knee, the new friend she had made, the paintings and the songs, the lunch in the big dining hall, and the castle she had built during free play. Every moment felt significant and worth sharing. As they approached the pickup area, Charlotte could see parents gathering, looking eager to reunite with their children. She scanned the crowd looking for her mother and father. When she spotted Catherine's familiar face, Charlotte felt a rush of love and happiness. She had enjoyed her day immensely, but seeing her mother made her realize just how much she had missed her family during the hours they had been apart. Catherine's face broke into a huge smile when she saw Charlotte. The little princess looked happy and confident, showing no signs of distress or unhappiness. George appeared from another direction, having been dismissed from his classroom at the same time. The siblings found each other in the crowd and walked together toward their parents. William was standing beside Catherine, and both parents knelt down to Charlotte's level as she reached them. Before they could even ask how her day had been, Charlotte launched into an excited account of everything she had done. The words tumbled out so quickly that she barely paused for breath. She told them about Emma, about the painting she had made, about the music class, about the scrape on her knee that didn't even hurt anymore, and about the castle she had built. Catherine listened with complete attention, asking questions at appropriate moments, and showing genuine interest in every detail Charlotte shared. William watched his daughter with obvious pride, seeing how the day had given her confidence and joy. George chimed in occasionally, adding his own observations about seeing Charlotte in the playground and at lunch. The family made their way to the car, with Charlotte continuing to chatter about her day. Other parents and children were doing the same thing, sharing stories of first-day experiences. The scene was one that played out at schools everywhere, a universal moment of reconnection between parents and children, of sharing the adventures of the day. As they drove away from Thomas's Battersea, Charlotte pressed her face against the window one more time, looking back at the school building. Tomorrow she would return, and there would be new things to learn and new adventures to have. But for now, she was content to be heading home with her family, knowing that she had successfully navigated her first day of school and proven to herself that she was ready for this new chapter in her life. Catherine reached back and squeezed Charlotte's hand. She was so proud of her brave little girl who had stepped into this new world with such confidence and grace. Charlotte squeezed back and gave her mother a tired but happy smile. It had been a big day, but she had loved every moment of it. The drive home was filled with more stories and questions. William asked about Charlotte's favorite part of the day, and she found it difficult to choose just one thing. Everything had been exciting in its own way. George shared stories from his own day, and Charlotte listened with interest, feeling a new sense of connection with her brother now that they were both students at the same school. When they arrived back at Kensington Palace, Prince Louis was waiting with his nanny to hear all about Charlotte's first day. The young prince didn't understand all the details, but he could see that his sister was happy and excited, which made him happy too. The family gathered in one of the sitting rooms, and Charlotte showed her parents the plaster on her knee, explaining the whole story of her fall and how brave she had been. Catherine suggested they have tea together as a family, a special celebration of Charlotte's first day at school. The kitchen staff had prepared some of Charlotte's favorite treats, including small sandwiches, scones, and fruit tarts. The family sat together in the informal dining room, a cozy space where they often gathered for family meals away from the formality of state occasions. As they ate, Charlotte continued to share details about her day. She talked about how kind the teacher had been, how the classroom had so many interesting things to explore, and how she had made a friend named Emma who loved horses just as much as she did. Catherine made mental notes about everything Charlotte was sharing, understanding that these first friendships and experiences were shaping her daughter's view of the world beyond their family circle. William asked Charlotte if she had been nervous at all during the day. Charlotte thought about this question carefully before answering. She admitted that there had been a moment in the morning, just before her parents left, when she had felt a tiny flutter of worry in her tummy. But she explained that once she started doing activities and talking to other children, the nervousness had completely disappeared. She told her father that George had been right when he said school was fun and that there was nothing to worry about. George looked pleased that his reassurance had been helpful. He told Charlotte that tomorrow would be even better because she would already know where everything was and wouldn't have to spend time figuring out the routines. He suggested that during break time, they could play together in the playground if she wanted, though he also said it was perfectly fine if she wanted to play with her new friends from her own class. After tea, Catherine took Charlotte upstairs to help her get changed out of her school uniform. As they walked through the palace corridors, Charlotte continued to talk about her day, remembering little details that she hadn't mentioned before. She told her mother about the boy who had been sad and how she had tried to make him feel better. Catherine paused in the hallway and knelt down to look Charlotte in the eyes. Catherine told Charlotte how incredibly proud she was, not just because Charlotte had been brave about starting school, but because she had shown kindness to someone who needed it. She explained that being kind and thinking about others' feelings was one of the most important things a person could do, and that Charlotte had done exactly the right thing. Charlotte felt a warm glow inside, understanding that her mother's praise meant she was becoming the kind of person she wanted to be. In Charlotte's bedroom, the school uniform was carefully hung up to be ready for the next day. Catherine helped Charlotte choose comfortable clothes to wear for the rest of the evening. As they went through the bedtime routine earlier than usual since Charlotte was clearly tired from her big day, Charlotte asked her mother if she could tell her more about when Catherine had gone to school for the first time. Catherine smiled and began to share stories from her own childhood, telling Charlotte about her first day at school and the friends she had made. She talked about feeling nervous and excited all at once about the teachers who had been kind to her, and about how school had opened up new worlds of learning and discovery. Charlotte listened with fascination, loving these glimpses into her mother's past. As Catherine talked, she brushed Charlotte's hair, a nightly ritual that both mother and daughter cherished. These quiet moments together were precious, times when they could talk about anything and everything. Charlotte asked if Emma could come over to play sometime, and Catherine assured her that once they got to know Emma's family better, they would definitely arrange playdates. This was important to Catherine and William, who wanted their children to have friendships that extended beyond school hours. Downstairs, William was spending time with George and Louis, but his thoughts kept returning to Charlotte's first day. He was relieved and delighted that it had gone so smoothly. As a father, he wanted nothing more than for his children to be happy and to thrive in whatever they did. Charlotte's confidence and joy throughout the day had reassured him that they had made the right choice in sending her to Thomas's Battersea. Later that evening, after the younger children were in bed, William and Catherine sat together in their private sitting room, discussing the day in more detail. They talked about how naturally Charlotte had adapted to the school environment, how she had made friends easily, and how her teachers had remarked on her polite and engaged behavior. They also discussed the challenges that might arise as the novelty of school wore off and the daily routine became established. Catherine mentioned that she wanted to stay closely connected with Charlotte's teachers, to understand how her daughter was progressing and to address any concerns early. She believed strongly in being involved in her children's education, not in an overbearing way, but in a supportive partnership with the school. William agreed completely, adding that they also needed to give Charlotte space to develop her independence and to navigate minor challenges on her own. They talked about how different Charlotte's experience might be from other children's, given her royal status. While the school had experience with George and had handled his presence with discretion and professionalism, Charlotte was their daughter, and there would inevitably be heightened interest from the media and public. They discussed strategies for protecting Charlotte's privacy while still allowing her to have as normal a school experience as possible. William raised the point that Charlotte seemed to have a natural ability to connect with people and to show empathy toward others. They both agreed this was a quality to nurture and encourage. In their roles as future monarchs, they understood the importance of being able to relate to people from all walks of life, and they were committed to ensuring their children developed this skill from an early age. The conversation eventually turned to logistics and planning. There would be school runs to organize, with careful consideration given to timing and security. There would be school events to attend, homework to support, and friendships to facilitate. Both parents were determined to be as present as possible in their children's school lives, even while balancing their royal duties and public commitments. As the evening drew to a close, Catherine went to check on Charlotte one more time. She quietly opened the door to find her daughter fast asleep, one arm wrapped around her favorite stuffed toy. The eventful day had clearly exhausted the little princess. Catherine stood in the doorway for a moment, watching Charlotte sleep peacefully, her face relaxed and content. Catherine thought about the journey that lay ahead for Charlotte. There would be many more school days, some wonderful and some challenging. There would be academic achievements and social complexities to navigate. There would be moments of triumph and moments of disappointment. But Catherine felt confident that Charlotte had the character, resilience, and support to handle whatever came her way. The next morning arrived quickly. When Catherine went to wake Charlotte, she found her daughter already stirring. Unlike the previous day when excitement had made sleep difficult, today Charlotte woke with a calm confidence. She knew what to expect, she knew where she was going, and she was eager to see her new friend again. This sense of comfortable anticipation was exactly what every parent hoped for when their child started school. The morning routine was smoother than the previous day. Charlotte dressed herself in her uniform with minimal help, ate a better breakfast since nerves weren't affecting her appetite, and was ready to leave on time. George teased her gently about being a school expert after just one day, but Charlotte took it in good humor, understanding her brother's affection behind the joking. The drive to school was filled with Charlotte's plans for the day. She wanted to finish the castle she and Emma had been building. She hoped they would have music again because she had loved playing the tambourine. She wondered what story the teacher would read today. William and Catherine exchanged smiles as they listened to their daughter's enthusiasm. At school, the drop-off was noticeably easier than the day before. Charlotte said a quick goodbye to her parents, gave them each a hug, and walked confidently into the building with George. She knew where her classroom was, she knew the routines, and she was excited to begin another day of learning and friendship. Catherine watched her daughter walk away, noting the spring in her step and the way she chatted easily with another child from her class. As the days turned into weeks, Charlotte settled fully into school life. She and Emma became close friends, often working together on projects and playing together during break times. Charlotte's teachers reported that she was engaged in her learning, curious about new topics, and kind to her classmates. She was developing academically and socially, growing in confidence and independence with each passing day. There were, of course, some challenges along the way. There were days when Charlotte didn't want to get out of bed, mornings when the excitement of school had worn off, and the routine felt tedious. There were small conflicts with classmates that needed to be resolved, hurt feelings that required comfort, and academic tasks that proved frustrating. But through it all, Charlotte demonstrated resilience and a positive attitude. William and Catherine remained actively involved in Charlotte's school experience. They attended parent-teacher meetings, volunteered for school events when their schedules allowed, and facilitated playdates with Charlotte's friends. They made a point of asking about her day every afternoon, showing genuine interest in what she was learning and who she was playing with. One particularly meaningful moment came a few weeks into the term when Charlotte's class performed a small concert for parents. Charlotte stood on the stage with her classmates, singing the songs they had learned in music class and playing her tambourine with enthusiasm. Catherine watched with tears in her eyes, moved by the sight of her daughter participating so fully in this normal childhood experience. After the concert, Emma's mother approached Catherine to compliment Charlotte on her performance and to mention how much Emma enjoyed having Charlotte as a friend. The conversation was warm and genuine, and Catherine appreciated being able to connect with other parents as simply another mother who cared about her child's happiness and well-being. These were the moments that made all the effort to provide a normal upbringing worthwhile. As autumn progressed, Charlotte's artwork began to cover the walls of Kensington Palace, proudly displayed alongside George's creations. Each painting, each drawing, each craft project represented not just artistic development, but also the experiences and learning that Charlotte was accumulating. Her reading skills began to improve as she brought home simple books from the school library, reading them aloud to Lewis with great expression. The friendship between Charlotte and Emma deepened as the weeks passed. The girls discovered they had many things in common beyond their love of horses. They both enjoyed making up stories, they both loved the color pink, and they both had younger brothers who could be annoying, but whom they loved dearly. Catherine finally arranged for Emma to come to Kensington Palace for a play date, an event that Charlotte had been anticipating with great excitement. Emma's mother was understandably nervous about bringing her daughter to a royal residence, but Catherine put her at ease immediately with her warm and down-to-earth manner. The adults had tea while Charlotte and Emma played in the nursery, their laughter echoing through the rooms. When it was time for Emma to leave, both girls were reluctant to part, already planning their next meeting. These normalizing experiences were exactly what William and Catherine had hoped for when they chose Thomas's Battersea. The school had provided Charlotte with an environment where she could learn, grow, and form friendships based on genuine connection rather than her royal status. While her position would always be a part of who she was, at school she was simply Charlotte, a student who loved art and music, who was kind to others, and who approached learning with enthusiasm. Looking back on that first day of school, Catherine realized how quickly time had passed. The nervous anticipation of the morning, the emotional goodbye at the classroom door, the anxious hours waiting for pickup time, all of it seemed so long ago now. Charlotte had not just survived her first day of school, she had thrived. She had stepped confidently into a new world and made it her own. That first day had set the tone for everything that followed. Charlotte's excitement, her kindness to the sad little boy, her enthusiasm for learning, and her ability to make friends had all been on display from the very beginning. These qualities continued to define her school experience as the weeks and months unfolded. For William and Catherine, Charlotte's successful transition to school represented more than just an educational milestone. It was validation of their parenting approach, confirmation that they were succeeding in raising their children to be grounded, confident, and compassionate despite their extraordinary circumstances. Every time Charlotte came home excited about something she had learned or a game she had played with friends, they felt reassured that they were on the right path. As Charlotte continued her journey through education, that first day would always hold a special place in the family's collective memory. It was the day their little princess took her first independent steps into the wider world. The day she proved she was ready to embrace new challenges, and the day she showed everyone, including herself, just how capable and special she truly was. The excitement of that September morning had marked the beginning of an adventure that would continue for years to come, shaping Charlotte into the remarkable person she was destined to become.